We are live. Jane Vause loses 100 pounds. And here she is today. Jane, how are you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling great. I guess, to be honest, a little bit apprehensive about doing this interview, but hopefully you'll go easy on me. And yeah, but no, it's a lovely sunny day here in Bristol, and I've just been for a nice swim, so all good here. Thank you. Yeah.
So take us back to before you joined Real Meal, maybe before you even started losing weight. What kind of health issues were you dealing with? How did you feel? What did you weigh?
Right, yeah. So, Jonno, I guess I had steadily put on weight over a number of years, and on one level, I knew that I was severely obese and needed to do something about it, but felt completely powerless and helpless to do anything because, of course, you can't stop eating. I felt addicted to certain foods, particularly carbs and sugar, and but didn't quite know how to stop, and also didn't get much help with that, because even my GP once just said to me, well, you just stop eating sugar, and couldn't understand what the problem was. And, and I've tried various other diets, and of course, nothing had really stuck or worked for me. So,
Mm.
yeah, so I'd say that over time, I became more and more addicted to sugar, and put on more and more weight. And then, the side effects of that were breathlessness, inability to stand and walk for long periods. So, exercise was becoming more and more difficult. But most importantly, I was diagnosed in 2019 as being pre-diabetic, and also was struggling with sleep. I never got a diagnosis, but I'm quite sure that I had sleep apnea. Was snoring dreadfully, and keeping the rest of the family awake, and just generally not sleeping very well, and also having bad symptoms of menopause, as well as mood swings. So so, so just lots and lots, the full Monty, lots and lots of
Yeah.
problems. And at my heaviest, I weighed about 300 pounds, which is oh gosh. So I'm not sure what that is in kilograms, but for people in the UK would understand it as being about 21.5 stone,
Sure.
which
So
is
I think
huge.
300 pounds is about 145 or 140 kilograms for
Kilograms, yeah,
anyone. Yeah.
probably, yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Mm.
And so you said that you were addicted to carbs and sugar. What kind of foods were you eating at the time? When you were trying to lose weight or just going through your
Yeah.
daily life, what was your food like?
Well, I've always, even as a child, I was sort of known as having a sweet tooth. That sort of classic saying. And I loved cakes, loved creamy puddings, all that kind of stuff. And actually, it was interesting because, and I also snacked a lot as well. I couldn't go for more than maybe a couple of hours without putting something in my mouth. It just felt like I constantly needed to keep refueling. And this was a pattern of behavior that developed over time. I haven't always been like that, but certainly, over the past, I don't know, maybe 15 years or whatever, it's just, just got worse and worse. And then I decided at one point that I was going to try and go easy on the puddings. But then I found when I did that, what happened was I started craving pastries and things like
Yeah.
pies and roast potatoes and anything with pastry in it, and all that kind of stuff. So actually, in retrospect, I think what I was doing was just transferring away from the sugar to other forms of high carb food as well. And I used to do things like, if I went shopping, I'd buy myself a so-called treat and then eat it in the car on the way home, and just really, really bad habits around food. Yeah.
And,
Mm-hmm.
and tell me about the
Mm-hmm.
the sort of social impact of weight, because I think a lot of people, when they see a testimonial, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay,
Mm.
Jane obviously just like one day got her act together and lost all this weight. But and
Yeah.
doesn't understand my pain. So what I'd love to hear is about some of the pain, like what it was like being overweight like that in social situations, how you felt, whether it impacted relationships or anything along those lines.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was interesting because I think I became very good at projecting a certain persona. I
Mm.
am naturally an extrovert and quite outgoing, and so I was able to project that for most of the time and appear confident, and sort of almost laugh off the weight problem. But it was tiring doing that, because you're putting on a front all the time, and it wasn't how I felt inside. And and there were times when you're going to special occasions, struggling to find something to wear. Hated having my photograph taken, absolutely loathed it. And Yeah, and then of course, with the family, like if we ever wanted to do something with the family, then, because of my, mobility and sort of poor health, it kind of restricted what we as a family could do for enjoyment,
Mm.
and we couldn't go for long walks together. My children, who are now young adults, are both sporty and pretty healthy, and my husband walks a lot as well, but it sort of really restricted all of that. And so but I did have periods of actually having depression, and was diagnosed with mild depression and actually received some CBT treatment for that. Um,
Okay.
and and when I was at my worst, I actually did shut myself away from other people,
Yeah.
and found it hard to even engage socially with anyone. Yeah.
You
Mm.
said
Mm.
cognitive behavioral therapy
Therapy.
for
Yeah.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And were you
Yeah.
medicated?
No, no,
Okay.
I never went that far, and yeah, I never wanted that at all. But
Mm.
and it was never bad enough for that. But CBT it's the standard, the standard treatment that one gets in the NHS here over in the UK,
Mm.
and so I took advantage of that, and that helped to an extent, and certainly I think it was at my worst in about 2015, 2016, and I came out of it and bumped along a bit, and but knew that I never ever wanted to go back there. Yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
mm,
So there's this thing that
mm,
happens with people.
mm.
They kind of, like every Monday is a new start. And so
Yeah.
people often say like,
Mm,
oh, I'll eat better this Monday. And I'm
yeah.
sure, for anyone who's overweight, I know that their habits I want to
Mm,
improve. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, this is the week. But
Yeah.
I'm sure that happened to you many times up until the
Mm,
point where you
mm,
decided to make a difference and it stuck. So what was it
yeah.
that was different about when you did finally decide to make a
Decide.
change?
Yeah.
What happened? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I just hit rock bottom, Jonno. And actually, so just in the run up to, because there was a light bulb moment, and I I can't remember the exact date, but it was a light bulb moment when I made that decision, and it was early last September. But in the run up to that, I had actually heard about a real meal revolution through a South African friend of mine who lives over here in the UK, in 2019. And so I'd signed up for your original online course, which is not the same as the current online course. And so I had access to the website and the recipes. And I did the dive, yeah, I did the RMR, online for about 2 months in 2019 and lost 18 pounds. So what's that? Yeah, I think it was, about 8 kilograms, something like that.
Yeah.
And that was great, and people started to notice, and that was good. But I just couldn't sustain it because I think my kids came back from university, and then family life, and you're eating all the other stuff, and it just it just didn't happen. But um but then uh, but I knew that it was something that potentially could work for me. And then last year, of course, the pandemic happened, and everything changed, and we had a lot
Mm.
of change in our family. We moved house in the middle of the pandemic, which is another whole story, which I won't go into, but it was very stressful at times, and it was a bit of a white knuckle ride because we were downsizing in an environment where we couldn't even throw away things that we wanted to get rid of, let alone,
Yeah.
get rid of them in other ways. So it was all, that was very challenging. Um, my members of my family, didn't cope with the pandemic very well, and we had a few health crises in the family. And so, although I personally wasn't anxious about the pandemic, I had a lot of that going on in my family, and having to support people who were in high states of anxiety. And I continue to work throughout. I work for the NHS here, although I'm not a health professional, but I work for the NHS. So I continue to work throughout. But it was a challenging environment, a lot of people, very stressed and working very hard and long hours and all that kind of stuff. And then I found myself getting into sort of quite a toxic work environment in the late summer of last year. So I think all of these things just coalesced, and the impact on me was that I found my anxiety levels started to soar. And I just remembered back to when I had my depression and in 2016, and thought, I cannot go back there. This is just, something's got to give. I also knew that being pre-diabetic put me at risk, in a high risk category for COVID as well. Although, even although I knew that intellectually, to kind of get that mindset of, well, I really need to do something about this was hard. But anyway, all of that coalesced, and I just thought, you know what, I cannot keep living like this any longer, with these levels of anxiety, with this level of ill health. I've got to do something about it. And I literally woke up one morning, sat up and turned to my husband and said, I've got to do something about this. I can't keep doing this any longer. I mean, to his credit, he sort of went, oh, right, really? And and obviously he's seen me try many things before and failed and everything. So I think he was a bit like, oh, here we go again. But to his credit, was very encouraging, made a few encouraging noises. And I had it all worked out in my head. I was able to extricate myself from work for a period, and did that very painlessly and in a way that didn't damage my relationships with anyone, and opened the door for me to go back to work when I was ready. So that took me about 4 days. So I managed to do that. But actually, during that 4 days, I received an email from you, and inviting me to sign on for the online RMR course starting in October. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. I've tried many things before, and I don't know if this is going to work, but something's got to work, and I know that it's worked for me. So I'm just going to give it a whirl and see how we get on. So I signed up. And I also dug out recipes and things. And I think actually I did have a copy of your original book, the Real Meal Revolution cookbook.
Yes.
So dug all of that out. And I have to say, my family were also brilliant, particularly my kids were like, because I think they could see just how, unhappy I'd been, how stressed I'd been, and how unhealthy I'd been as well. And so their attitude was, right, okay, what do we need to do to help you? So, and they were brilliant. So, we all basically, we had a rota going, meal rota, because we were all cooking. They actually had to move back home because of the pandemic, which turned out to be a blessing because, they're both good cooks and they were willing to support. So we had a family rota going, the rest of the family ate in the sort of keto way, by and large, although I have to say both my husband and son couldn't quite wean them off the occasional roast potato and chips and, things like that. But everyone's sort of, very supportive. They did it for me. We had no rubbish food in the house. They did most of the shopping to protect my husband and I from being exposed to COVID. And I have to say, they were like Rottweilers. It was like, no, we're not having any junk food in the house. My daughter used to run regular exercise sessions for me and all this kind of stuff, So I have to say they were amazing. Sorry, I'm a bit emotional because they were incredible. And anyway, but all of that together with the online program really got me off to a good start. And I started the online program, and I started off by thinking, accessing the website, but just didn't realize for those first few weeks how incredibly useful the workshops were. And I started to do the workshops. I think I dipped into one or two in the first few weeks, and then realized very soon that actually they were like gold. Combination of the information that you and Victoria and Bridget deliver in the workshop. So the content, you're all, professionals in your field, qualified, know what you're talking about, and everything was backed up by science. So it didn't feel faddish or, anything like that at all. It was all, made perfect sense. So it was that, and I just felt I was learning all the time. But I think also more importantly, and you're probably going to ask me what the difference is between this and everything else I've ever done. But for me, the big difference is that it's a completely holistic course. So you're not just advising on food, and what food to eat. It's looking at health, metabolic health from the physiological, the diet, nutrition perspective. Looking at the psychology around food, and that really resonated with me. The workshops with Victoria, and then also the mindset work that you do in your workshops also helped me to really understand how to take all that information and and really plan and and set goals and plan and just manage the whole process of improving my health. So so all of it was just incredibly useful. And I found myself going from thinking, oh gosh, how on earth can I set aside a whole Friday morning for this, to thinking, absolutely, this is my priority for the week. This is my time. I'm not doing anything else. And you will probably remember I turned up every week for a period, right, and throughout the Heroes program as well. It was my priority, my time. The family understood that. I made sure it was a non-working day for me because I work part-time, and that's what I did for a period of about 6 months. And and it was brilliant.
I mean, it just sounds like there was a lot of stuff in play there. So you worked really hard on yourself, and I think that's what a lot of people don't necessarily understand. I think people underestimate how much time you have to dedicate to yourself to really make an impact. And what's so wonderful is the support you had. And I think I think a lot of people are afraid to ask for help. And so you got well, like what a sweet deal that you got from your family. That's really amazing. Jane, what were, because I know it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. What were some of the big challenges even during this transformation period?
Okay. Yeah, no, I can answer that. And then I'll also pick up on the the difficulty as well, because I do have a few comments about that, Jonno. So I think in the beginning it was getting into the routine. And as I've said, the family really, really helped in that, so, and I've even said to my hero group, when they've been struggling, recruit your family, because they will be your best best support if if you're struggling, and if they love you and they want to see you well, then they will help you. So that was that was really important. Getting into the routine, probably giving up sugar. Was a challenge for the first few weeks, but actually, as I started to see the results, and also as once I realized this was a physiological thing, it wasn't just me being a weak person with no willpower or whatever, you start to understand it better. And also, once I gave it up, I started to see the benefits, and not just in terms of weight loss, but also no mood swings. My blood sugar stabilized, so my hunger levels changed, and I no longer, in fact, I got to a point where I would struggle to fit the amount of food that I used to just happily pour down my throat. I just wouldn't be able to put that amount of food into my system, and once you start to see that, and then you start to lose weight, you just think, gosh, it just becomes easier and easier, and the motivation's definitely there, but also, most importantly, the food cravings stopped, and they stopped remarkably quickly. And I'm not going to lie and say, oh, I never had another food craving, because I did. And I can remember there was a time in January. Of course, January over here was an awful month because, we had lockdown again, and it was midwinter. The weather was absolutely rubbish, dark days and all that. And I think probably the whole country felt a bit depressed by the end of January, So it was a hard time, for everyone. And certainly everyone I know, at that time, and spoke to at that time was struggling. And I was as well. And I can remember there was one evening, I think, where I just wanted to hoover up the contents of the kitchen, and it was partly because I was just feeling fed up, but also just had a real craving. And and that was really hard. And there were one or two, but I can honestly say there were only one or two occasions when it was like that. And but what I did when I thought, right, okay, I know I'm going to have to eat something, but I am not going to eat sugar. So I think I ate a whole packet of nuts, and and cheese, things that I knew were kind of okay as far as as doing the low carb diet was concerned, but not not the high sugar, the high sugar foods. And then of course what happened was you get the aftermath of that, and which is not pleasant. And for a few days I had a really upset stomach afterwards, and and digestive issues and all that kind of stuff. And I made a point of remembering how I felt afterwards, and thinking, I must capture this feeling, capture this moment, capture how I'm feeling. And doing that really helped me when I felt the urge to binge again, because I would go back and have an internal conversation with myself to think, do I really want to do this again? This is going to be the impact. Do I really, really want to go through this? Is the momentary pleasure of, having this food in my mouth, worth it or whatever? And that really helped. And actually that sort of technique was something that I learned through, I think it was either one of yours or Victoria's workshops, was really sort of going through that thought process. So, so that was very helpful. But the one point I do also want to say to anyone who's thinking of doing this, it does. I've had so many people say to me, "Oh, it must have been really hard," and isn't it amazing that you've done this? But honestly, there have been some tough moments, but it's not as hard as you think, because once I got to the point, and and as I said, it happened quite quickly, of not having the urges to binge and not having the mood swings. Actually, it became surprisingly easy. And the great thing about Real Meal Revolution is that you eat well. So you're not trying to survive on lettuce leaves and small bowls of salad and nothing else. Because what I did learn was that I needed to increase my protein intake, and I could still eat all the good healthy carbs, but I can have a big plate of salad, not just a tiny plate of salad. And and I can have healthy carbs, healthy protein, and also fat. And of course it's the protein and the fat that make the meals more appetizing and fill you up more, as you know. And I have to say also, Jonno, the fact that you also have a background as a chef has been brilliant, because we as a family have eaten a lot of your recipes and meals from, and I've subsequently bought your latest cookbook as well. And I feel, because our family is we enjoy our food, and we also enjoy cooking, and I feel we've had restaurant quality foods a lot of the time, meals and all that, because we've had access to all of that. And I've really learned how to make sensible substitutions, so I can still eat mayonnaise, and I can still eat I've even found a recipe for keto Yorkshire puddings. Ooh, yeah. Which we had in the winter with our with our roast.
Wow. Oh,
I as you see my top tips, I suppose, are that as you see the results, it becomes easier and easier. But also, don't think you're consigning yourself to a life of misery, because actually, around food, because actually you can eat really well. And I made that point to a friend of mine who actually said to me when she saw me for the first time, "Gosh, you've lost so much weight in a short space of time. Haven't you been feeling faint while you've been doing it?"
Yeah.
Which, of course, is subtext you've been following a rubbish diet, and
you're
this is not going to be
yourself.
sustainable. Exactly. And I turned around and looked her in the eye and said, I have never felt faint at all. And actually, I feel far more healthy than I have done for decades. And I've been eating really well. I've not been starving myself. I've been eating really well. And I've just found a style of eating that works for me, and that's all I can say about it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm.
Jane, so you were on I mean, I'd love to just extract everything, but I would just say you were on the subscription for ages. So that was like basically you took the first or old course, and then you were paying like a monthly thing for apps, for access to the app, and then you did the newest course. And that's where you got your workshops. But then you joined the Hero program as well.
The Hero program, yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your experience on the Hero program?
Yeah, sure, Jonno. Yeah, so I decided, because of course the online program was coming to an end at the end of the year. I'd had fantastic results. I'd even done a keto Christmas, which was brilliant, and realized that you could still enjoy Christmas and do keto, and that they weren't mutually exclusive. So that was excellent. And then and then I think you started advertising the Heroes program, and I thought, actually I could do with I was doing well, but I thought, I could do with perhaps a bit of injection of something different and something new. And I like the idea of having access to coaching and also having a support network as well. So so I signed up for the Heroes program, not entirely knowing what to expect, but just thinking, this will be great. Let's give it a try. And I'm really pleased I did, because it was good to actually be doing something a bit different, because mix it up a little bit. But also I found it was quite an intense process, which was great for me at that time. And I'm glad I did the online program first, because I got a lot of knowledge which I was then able to apply during the Heroes program. But also, I love the fact, so I did it with Sharon, one of your coaches, Sharon, who was great. I love the fact that we had access to, Sharon's knowledge and her coaching, experience, and, and all of that. We had the bi-weekly workshops, which was fun, and it was a great opportunity to share experiences with the other women in my group. There were 6 of us in the group, which was lovely. All expat South Africans living over here in the UK, which gave us a common sort of frame of reference, and it was great. I loved meeting all of them. It was great to actually be with a crowd of South Africans, because I immigrated many years ago, so it was lovely to reconnect with with other South Africans. So enjoyed it on that level as well. But we all had a common goal. We were great support to one another. We checked in with each other every day. And I think at various different times we were able to encourage one another. We also, the thing I realized as well is that, of course, we all have a certain level of knowledge, and we've discovered things that work for us, or discovered companies that do keto food, or whatever. And so we were able to share a lot of information and encouragement to one another, and that was hugely helpful. One of the group actually is also a qualified chef, so I tapped into her knowledge a lot for for inspiration and information, and found that really useful. So so no, it was great. And actually I did continue to lose, and actually really in the last few weeks, because I'd set myself a sort of target for the end of the 3 months, and Sharon and the group were really helpful in kind of giving me that extra push and motivation during the last, I think it was the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks of the Heroes program, to actually achieve the target that I'd set. So yeah, an excellent experience. Yeah, very, very good.
That's great. So now you've got a lot less weight to carry around with you. What are some of the takeaways? You mentioned the one thing that you,
Mm,
sorry, I don't know if I lost you there for a second, but you mentioned that,
mm, mm,
I can't remember, but you just mentioned an insight that you got from Victoria's lessons. I'm trying to remember what it was now, but but
yeah,
there are a few tools
yeah.
that you have
Mm,
now where perhaps
yes,
you feel like craving,
mhm,
or you get upset or derailed
mm,
by a certain dynamic socially or work-wise. But there are also
yeah,
things that you will have learned nutritionally. Like, what are some of the key takeaways or habits or tools that you're
yeah,
taking away
mm,
that you can take into the rest of your life and other
yeah.
areas of your life?
Okay, yeah, right. So yes, I can think of yeah, of a number. So in terms of my behavior around eating, the biggest thing I learned was that I now understand what triggers me to want to overeat, and it's anxiety, and and I and so I have now learned how to either avoid getting into those situations if possible. Um, and but if that's not possible, I do have. I think I feel I now have some techniques for, for managing my anxiety levels as well, and so and that has and that I think is really where the psychology of eating workshops have really helped me. I understand my drivers so much more. I understand myself so much more, and
Mm,
and sort of what makes me feel good about myself, and where things have gone wrong, and so I'm able to, it's sort of not put myself in high risk situations, any longer.
yeah.
So definitely, that has been a huge takeaway from that. Um, in terms of the nutrition, I just now know that sugar is not my friend, and
Mm,
I know that I'm incredibly insulin resistant, and and so and because of that, I will never, and I will say this, on camera, I will never, ever, ever eat refined sugar again. That is just not what I'm going to do, and I'm also not going to eat sugar substitutes as well, because I do know now, I understand now that there is a physiological trigger that that can happen even with sugar substitutes, that can make your body
yeah.
think you're having sugar, and therefore trigger the whole insulin response. So I'm just not going to do that at all, and I've made it you know very politely clear to, because we're not socializing that much still, because of the pandemic, but where we are, I've sort of made it very clear to people that that is a permanent lifestyle change that I'm making. I've drastically reduced my alcohol intake, and I now very, very, very rarely have alcohol, and probably I can see over time that I'm just going to stop drinking at all. Not that I was drinking a lot, but just sort of cutting those kinds of things out of my diet, and grains, and and a lot of the foods that are on your blacklist, just and
Mm,
grey list, just cutting those out. Um, so nutritionally, there's all of that, but also in terms of of the mindset work that you do with all your clients. I mean, a lot of that material can be applied to life, in general, thinking about what one's values are, and then prioritizing your activities and your goals and everything around your values, and all of that sort of stuff, I think, has been incredibly helpful. I mean, the one thing I just want to say is, of course, you have the BHAGs, of course, and I think I
yes.
mentioned to you, and I'll say to anyone listening to this, you'll have to attend your workshops to understand what a BHAG is. But for me, that's that achieving that 100, losing that 100 pounds was a BHAG, and it was
Yeah.
great, and it was such a confidence builder for me to know that I could actually achieve a BHAG, which at the beginning of the program seemed like something that was just totally unattainable. But also differentiating between these sort of long-term desires and goals, and then and short-term process goals, and
Yeah.
and really understanding that it's all about, in the short term, it is about process, and about process and not perfection, because I do have a perfectionist tendency, so I've learned to sort of let that go a bit, and try not to be too controlling as well, because at the moment my weight loss, I do still have a more weight to lose, and also my BMI, I need to get my BMI, or want to get my BMI into a healthy range. It's not quite there yet, and also I'm carrying a bit too much around my middle and hips, which is classic, the sort of visceral fat. And so I'm not yet in the healthy weight range for my weight, so I do need to lose a bit more. But, somebody just said to me actually yesterday morning when I was out dog walking, a friend of mine who's sort of, seen me on and off, and she said to me, Jane, she said, just celebrate where you are at the moment, and don't worry about it, And I thought, yeah, she's absolutely right, and I think I've learned that, just to let go a little bit and just celebrate, where I am at the moment, and know that, I've broken the back of this journey now, and yes, it's going to continue for the rest of my life, and and I will get there, but I don't know quite when, and hopefully it won't be too long. But I'm just enjoying the moment for now, and I will definitely be signing up for another RMR program, and I haven't quite made up my mind whether to go back on Heroes or maybe to have some one-to-one coaching, and I will decide that sort of in the summer, but just to maybe have another sort of push towards, getting to that very long-term goal. But I did actually, it was last night actually, in preparing for this, I actually looked back at something I wrote last October, when we do the sort of summons and you set the goals and all this, it's sort of going back to your workshops. And actually, I was able to check a few boxes, and goals that 1 year goals that I set myself at the time, thinking ho ho ho, this is a bit hilarious, and it was great to be able to say, yeah, I've achieved that, and and so on. So yeah, it was brilliant.
That's great. So now you've got the rest of your life ahead of you, and how is it different now? What's different about your life outside of food? So obviously you've lost weight and you're feeling better. What about relationships and your work? How has it impacted those areas?
Well, I think so. Yeah. So in terms of family relationships, I think as a family we've become a lot closer. I've really, experienced fantastic support, as I've said, from my family, which has been amazing, and I think. And for me, it's been important to be a good role model to my children, who've seen that actually, I mean, because they saw my behavior around food and everything when they were growing up, and and everything, but for them to see that even at my age, which is sort of this pre-retirement, that I can actually make significant changes and stick to it. And so I'm really pleased about that. And it's got them thinking about their healthy lifestyles as well. And in fact, they both have seen some benefits just even from sort of loosely following keto. So that's been great, and my husband, I think, is gobsmacked, because he's lived with me for many years, and it's like, blimey, she's finally done it, who is this new woman, so and for the first time I have permission to go and buy clothes, first time in my life, all that kind of stuff, so yeah, which is being a bit trite, but no, definitely, and I think I'm probably, hopefully, a nice person to live with, because I'm not as stressed, and and I'm certainly feeling a lot happier and healthier in myself. I've had people tell me that I look 10 years younger, and I certainly feel about 20 years younger, because I can do more, and much more energetic, and all the sort of menopause symptoms and all that rubbish, that comes with with women of my age, has all really faded into the background. And actually, when I did have a bit of a lapse once, that was actually one of the first things that came back, was I got a hot flush, and I thought, oh, right, okay. This is a reminder to me to say, no, you're not going to do this any longer. So that's all been great. And then work-wise, when I did go back to work, I was able to be very clear with my, I work in a sort of consultancy, aligned to the NHS. So I was able to be very clear with my line manager about what had gone on for me, and what were my kind of boundaries boundaries around work
Yes.
and stress at work were, because basically they were parachuting me, because of my experience, they were parachuting me into situations where projects and programs were failing, and I was
Yeah.
going in doing the turnaround, which I have all the skills and competencies to do. But of course, that's where you experience a lot of backlash from people, because they know
Yeah.
why you're in there. They don't necessarily want you to be in there, and they feel very threatened by your presence. And so a lot of passive aggression and all that, which is hard. And I was like, I don't think I can do this all constantly. I can't go from one to one to, and so actually through having that sort of conversation and being very clear, she was able to seek out work that was able to utilize my skills and experience without having the associated stress and pressure around it. And actually, attending the workshops and doing the program has also gave me the confidence to set the boundaries, which I kind of wouldn't have had in the past, to be very clear and say, well, actually, yeah, this is what I can do, but I can't go beyond that. And so I'm now, doing a new assignment and loving it, and because everyone is very, we're all very clear about what I'm doing and why I'm there and how many days a week I'm working, and and all that kind of stuff, and everyone's being very respectful of that, because it's very much part and parcel of the values of the organization that I'm working in, so that's been another big benefit, which only indirectly has something to do with my weight, because it's helping me to manage the anxiety, which in turn is having the positive impact on my weight, but not just my weight, my overall mental health as well, I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, it's and I think even though you say it's indirect, I think that many people don't realize how the rest of the life actually impacts their weight, and so often, trying to change what you eat when like by the time the thing is in your mouth, so much other stuff has happened. Like often it's like low self-worth leads to someone in like an awkward or unplayable relationship or work situation, which leads to like constant fighting, which then leads to like uncontrollable eating. And then you're like, oh, I hate myself because I keep eating this thing. And you actually like, if you go down to the bottom of the pyramid, that's what really makes a difference. And I don't think many people understand that. So
no, absolutely. And I don't think I really understood it until I did RMR, Jonno, because you get into a downward spiral, and then that just becomes the norm, and that's just the way you live, and I think that had been happening to me for decades, really, and it's only through actually, focusing, and not just on, what you eat, but all the other stuff, as you say, that's going around it, has really helped. And I think, I kind of, I think of it as saying, well, you don't get to the weight that I was unless you have an unhealthy relationship with food, and in order to deal with that, you've got to look at, you've got to take a sort of full 360, degree look at it. You can't just focus on one aspect, on the food itself. You've got to look at everything, because as you say, there's a whole process and, of stuff that happens, and almost by the time the food's in your mouth, it's almost too late.
Totally.
All the stuff that happens before that. Yeah.
Totally. So Jane, it's an absolute pleasure chatting to you about your transformation. I hope everyone who's watched this has seen, just to listen to you speak, it just sounds like there has been a true internal transformation as well. It's not just like, something that you haven't mentioned at all is willpower. And that's fascinating, because a lot of people think they'll be looking at you saying, oh, she must have just held her breath for 6 months or 10 months and now it's different. And so it's what you've said is actually, it really speaks for the transformation you've been through, and it's really, really amazing. So thank you for sharing your story with everyone.
No, it's a pleasure. Yeah, I hope it's been helpful. Yeah, because I mean, the only thing I would say is, it's just, if anyone's just even thinking about this remotely, is just go for it, because if like me, you'll soon discover that the benefits are, just far outweigh any anything else. Yeah. And it has been transformation. And I say to people, I'm not on a diet. This is a whole lifestyle, transformation. And this is definitely something I will be doing for the rest of my life. Yeah, definitely.
That's gold. Thanks so much, Jane.
Okay.
Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you in the workshop.
Okay. Thanks, Jonno. Take care.